You have one child and you're thinking about having a second child and you're wondering, is it worth it? Will it be easier? Is this the right decision for me? As a father of two, these are some of the questions that I was thinking before we had our second child. Question number one, is having a second child easier than having a first child? I will say this. It is most likely easier to go from having 1 to 2 children than it is from going 0 to 1 children. And the reason for this is because going from 0 to 1 children is a mental shift. You're used to having your routines. You're used to things being done in a certain way. When you have your first child, it is a complete shift in how you go about living your daily life. I know that after my daughter, I kept thinking, when are things gonna go back to normal? Well, it turns out, as you may have realized, that things don't go back to normal. Instead, you get a new normal. By the time your second child comes along, you're already adapted into that new lifestyle, so bringing a second child is more a logistical change and a physical one rather than a mental one. When my daughter was born, I remember picking her up at the hospital and being terrified, not knowing how to hold her, not knowing how to feed her. When my son was born, I knew exactly what to do. I didn't have to mentally prepare myself, but of course there is that change in the logistics and figuring out schedules and timing. So in that sense, it's definitely harder, but overall, it's easier to go from 1 to 2 kids than it is from 0 to 1. Question number 2, will my kids play together? Yes, but it might not be in the way you think. Depending on the age gap between your kids, a younger, older sibling may want to play with a newborn infant in a way that they're not really able to first. I remember one of the most challenging parts when we brought our son home was that our 2.5-year-old wanted to keep jumping on him. Now, my son is about 10 months old at this point, so that's not quite as big a deal as it was when he was a newborn, but of course you don't want a 2.5-year-old jumping on a newborn. However, even at this age with a 2.5-year age gap, my daughter is now over 3, my son is almost 10 months, they love playing together. My son follows my daughter around everywhere she goes. She is his best friend and she loves playing with him too. I can only imagine that bond is going to get stronger and tighter the older they get. So at least for now, I can say yes, absolutely, the kids love playing together, but when you have a newborn, that might not be quite a good thing. Question number 3, and leading into that from the previous question, will you have more free time? At least in the first year of your newborn's life, probably not. Having 2 kids is a huge time commitment. Before having any kids, you probably wonder, what did I do with all that free time I had? Well, after having 2 kids, you start to wonder, what did I do with all that free time I had when I only had 1 kid? When you have 1 kid and that child goes down for a nap or goes out with mom or dad, the other parent has a chance to relax, rewind, do some tidy up. When you have a second child, especially a baby, you don't have that free time. You're just going from looking after one to looking after the other. With my wife and I, often we'll look at each other and we'll just say, switch. Of course, I imagine as they get older, you will eventually start to have more free time come as they are playing together. And that is the beauty. When they do play together, it does give you some opportunities. But overall, especially in that first year of the newborn's life, it is way less time than you used to have. Question number 4. Is it better to have an older sister or an older brother? Well, I can only speak from my own perspective, which is we have an older daughter and a younger brother. So the daughter is now 3 years old. The son is about 10 months old. And having an older daughter, in my opinion, is wonderful. So my daughter loves playing with her dolls. She loves changing diapers. She loves helping out with the baby. Sometimes it actually is helpful. She's wonderful at calming him down, much more than my wife or I can do. And sometimes she wants to help, and it may not be that helpful, but you still let her anyway because she is learning and she will get better at helping the more she practices and she learns. And finally, is having a sibling a good thing at all? Well, I'm an only child, so I could say that I really wish I had a sibling, especially when it comes to family gatherings and aging parents. Being an only child is more and more difficult as you get older. It's your sole responsibility to look after your parents. And this happened to me recently with my mom when she was in the hospital. It was very hard because it was just myself and my dad providing all that care and support. Having a sibling is probably a good thing because it does give them always someone there to play with and someone to look after. And again, as they get older, as they get into becoming parents themselves, it also means that they're more likely to have close family around, nearby, and there's going to be that extended, close, tight network. Do you agree or do you disagree? Feel free to drop a comment and let me know.